Hi everyone, this is my final presentation video about the interviews that we did. So as kind of an introduction, I wanted to start off with who I interviewed and why. So I interviewed Zoya Zook. She is the Associate Director of Financial Aid at Spokane Community College. And then I also interviewed Joanne Melanie. She is the Volunteer and Outreach Coordinator at Scraps. So I had a few reasons that I wanted to interview them, these particular people. Zoya, for example, I'm hoping to pursue a career with the financial aid office after graduation and wanted to find out a bit more about the job and the environment that I would be working in. I was originally going to meet with Tammy Zibble, who's the director of financial aid at SCC, but she had a family emergency last minute and had to make other arrangements. Uh, I would have interviewed the director at SFCC, but seeing as she's my current supervisor, that probably wouldn't have worked out for this assignment. As for Joanne, I'm a former volunteer for Scraps. I was volunteering when I was in high school, and Joanne took over the position while I was still there. Her position is a very important managerial role in the organization as she oversees hundreds, if not thousands, of volunteers. I was also curious about how managing volunteers works and how she's able to handle the difficult work that she does, seeing as she works with thousands of sick animals every day. The first thing that I want to talk about is what I hope to learn and what I did learn through conducting these interviews. For both interviews, I hope to learn a bit more about management positions as a whole. Seeing as I don't have very much professional experience, I wanted to hear from two people that are in a higher up professional role uh, and see what their take was on certain issues that I know I had been curious about. So it was really nice to be able to talk to them and hear their side of things because as students, especially with financial aid and things like that, we only hear a very brief portion of it. And since starting to work in the financial aid office, I realized how much more goes into financial aid and how much paperwork is involved and how much time it takes. So getting to interview with somebody that I don't necessarily know very well, and I know she wasn't fabricating answers or giving me too much information, if that makes sense. She was able to kind of clue me in on some things, and I was able to get a bit of a better understanding, even further past what I already learned at my job now. The most important thing that I learned was how to conduct an interview and how to prompt the person you were speaking to. With my first interview, I found this really difficult. She kind of gave me some shorter answers and not necessarily a substantial answer, so I kind of had to prompt her a little bit and push myself past my comfort zone to get her to come out of her comfort zone and be able to talk to me in a conversational way. By the second interview, I felt a lot more confident, and the interview lasted about twice as long because I was able to get her talking and expressing some of her feelings about certain issues and talking about her family and things like that. I think I learned what I expected to learn from my interview with Zoya, but I learned a lot that I was unaware of in my interview with Joanne. Not necessarily about the professional aspect of the position, but of the general things that happen around the shelter. She took me on a tour of the whole shelter, and it had been renovated and changed around a bit since I had been there last. So it was really interesting to see how the director of Scraps had moved her office from this nice place with a window to a small, basically a closet, so that some sick animals could have a window while they were getting better and be able to see the sunlight and get some fresh air. I thought that was really bold of her to do that, and it was really interesting information to find out while I was conducting my interview. So there were a couple things that surprised me while interviewing. So I found out that when Joanne was choosing to take the position of volunteer coordinator and outreach coordinator, she decided to take a pay cut so that she could follow her passion of helping animals. I thought that was really brave of her because she does have a family, and it takes a lot of courage and kind of a leap of faith to jump into something like that and take a pay cut and not know how it's going to work out or how you're going to fit in with the role. So I thought that was really brave of her. I also learned a lot about how the shelter runs, who the volunteers are, the different programs and grants at Scraps, which there are way more than I thought there were, uh, and overall what keeps the shelter going. I realized how much the community and volunteers contribute and how most of the contributions are made by the community. For example, back in October, they had a food shortage and didn't have enough food to last another 2 weeks to feed the animals that were um, impounded in the shelter. And they posted about it on Facebook, and I think they sent something out with the news stations. And they now, because of the community, have enough food to last them through next summer. I thought that was really amazing that the community of Spokane came together and helped them out like that and made sure they had everything they needed. As for my interview with Zoya, I found out she was a graduate of SCC and earned a degree in accounting. She always knew that she wanted to work with numbers, but wasn't aware that there were positions in the financial aid office that she could potentially earn or work in. She's also an immigrant from the Soviet Union, and I got to learn about some of the challenges that she faced because of it being a college student here and having to pay for college herself and try not to take loans. I also learned that there's a lot more customer service involved with being a financial aid advisor. You mostly interact with students through email and other written communication, but you are still needing to maintain a professional conduct around them and in the office, even if they can't hear you. So there were quite a few things that I learned about interviewing and things that I didn't realize before. One of those was learning how to communicate with the person you're interviewing. You have to get to know them for a brief time during that interview. So the introductory questions are really nice to kind of break the ice and get them talking and see where they stand on some things or how they feel about certain things and kind of get that passion out of them. So I think that really helped my interviews. I also learned that outlining your questions is really important to have a smooth interview progression. I realized if I hadn't outlined my questions, I would have been lost. I wouldn't have known what to ask. It would have been a disaster. I also learned that you should make sure to record with 2 devices. That way, if one recording is accidentally deleted or compromised, you have a backup. My first interview, I recorded with my laptop and I recorded with my phone. The interview from my phone did not work. It sounded very muddled, and you couldn't understand Zoya. You could only understand me. So I obviously couldn't use that one, but the laptop recording worked very well. So I was really glad that I decided to record with 2 devices. And the final thing I learned, and I think is one of the most important with interviewing, is maintaining a conversational quality, but also letting the subject speak more than you. The purpose of the interview is to learn from them, not the other way around. A couple other insights that I gathered during or after the process, or how I changed the interview. Well, one thing that I would do differently next time is I would practice my questions a bit more before having the interviews. It was difficult to know exactly how things would go, but I should have been more prepared to jump around to topics and certain questions and skip past some of the prompting questions that I had because the people I was interviewing would answer them. Obviously, I'm not going to ask that again after they've already just answered it. Everything else went very smoothly. The locations were perfect. People I was interviewing were willing to answer my questions and provide more than just yes or no statements, which was very helpful. So they basically did the work for me. Well, Joanne really did most of the work for me. She had so much to say, not that it's a bad thing, and she was really easy to talk to, so she really filled up the time. In conclusion, at first, to me, this assignment was really intimidating. I struggle with social anxiety, so doing things like this is so far out of my comfort zone, I can't even imagine doing it just on a normal basis. After my first interview, though, I was a lot more confident in my ability to lead an interview and be professional. I found this assignment to be very interesting, and I learned a lot about professional communication from it. So I've had a great quarter with all of you guys and hearing your opinions, and I hope you guys have a great holiday break, and hope to see you guys next quarter if we're in any classes together. Thanks.